one of the big issues at COP is that you have different countries coming in and wanting to make negotiations on how we draw down climate. Now, I'll give you a little piece of good news. The piece of good news here is that countries here, they all know that we need to do this. They all know that the threat before us is existential, and there very much is a great deal of motivation in collaborating internationally to draw down emissions. And for example, what we saw yesterday was that the United States, former Secretary of State and Special Envoy of the United States on Climate, John Kerry, announced yesterday that the United States and China have issued a surprise announcement that they will begin to open a collaborative, positive diplomatic relationship on specifically the issue of climate change in order to draw down emissions. Now, people may say, oh my God, what does that mean? Is it just on paper? That's one of the questions that I received, because it wasn't particularly detailed. It was quite broad, and this is where I kind of pivot back to the bad news section, is when individual countries come together on the issue of climate change, they're not just operating as individuals, right? This is not John Kerry making proclamations, nor is it ambassadors and individuals from different countries being able to come together and make these commitments on climate. They have to be in accordance with the domestic politics of each individual country. And so, for example, one of the hubbubs that we got and some of the heat the United States got was that several countries had come together to announce that and commit to the fact that and sign an agreement that they will no longer open new coal burning factories or really aspire to not produce coal-based energy by 2030. And people are saying the United States did not sign on to this agreement. And people say, oh my gosh, why not? The United States is not stepping up, etc. Well, the thing is we have to come back home, right? And domestic politics becomes very much an issue. As we know, there are huge communities and lobbies in the United States that would issue an enormous backlash to just a sudden proclamation of us, signing on to that. And so I think it's important that when we come together at COP, each and every individual country, someone said Australia, Australia came and really brought nothing to the table on this. And that complicates negotiations. However, I think some of the good news is that a lot of these countries, even if they aren't able to sign on to public proclamations because of domestic complications with domestic politics, they are in some ways quietly making investments in infrastructure in order to facilitate these transitions. So the good news is that there is more that is being done to draw down emissions and transfer over to clean energy than is always publicly announced. Because sometimes making public announcements about these things can have negative domestic or political consequences, but there are a lot of factors that are happening, including market factors.